Hi, Emily. My daughter, Emily. She's from the middle of nowhere, Illinois.
So it looks like people are getting in and getting settled. So go ahead and start whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Okay, super. Yeah, thank you, Debbie. Hey, I'm Amy Karanik. I'm a Sculpey brand ambassador and Sculpey clay artist. I'm so thrilled that you've joined me today. Very exciting stuff here. We're going to look at some simple and fun and easy techniques that you can do with Primo Sculpey oven baked clay. And the three techniques we're going to focus on are marbling, mokume-gane, and terrazzo. Now we're going to turn those into earrings just because they're quick and easy to do, but you can translate this project however you would like with these valuable techniques into home decor or really any other project that you have going. It's also super easy to change up the colors and make it your way. So if you're ready, let's take a look. Let's get started with the projects. And first I'd like to introduce the clay to you. This is Primo Sculpey, and let me just get my bearings here where my, there we go, it's gonna be right there. This is Sculpey Primo, and it comes in a 2-ounce package. It says Sculpey right up here, and you'll find the word Primo underneath, and that's how it's branded in the store. The colors that we are going to use today, this is a mix and match colorway that Jen and I came up with. There's going to be white gold glitter, gray granite, Spanish olive, beige, alizarin crimson, and white. I've got my white bar is way down there. So anyway, we're going to mix and match these colors in each of the three different projects. These are the earring designs that we've come up with. This one is what we call terrazzo. It's going to go first. This is mokume-gane, and I'll explain more about what that means as we work on it. And then this is a marbled pair of earrings. So we're going to do the terrazzo ones first. Let me get these other ones out of the way. And I'll just pull my clay in here so that we can get started. Now, can that little message go off the screen so I can see my hands? It says this meeting is being recorded, and I'm fine with that. I think that's great. I like that this meeting is being recorded. So anyway, first thing I did was sheeted some white Primo, and this white Primo is really soft and squishy and conditioned well. So I just did that with an acrylic roller. And this sheet is, if you're using a pasta machine, it's about a number 1 setting. If you want to just use a hand roller, then it is about 1/8 of an inch thick. Now, these are equal parts of Spanish olive and white and alizarin crimson and white. And I'm just going to use these color mixes to make a couple more colors, and I'll just show you how easy it is. I divided those off my bar. I did 1/8 of a bar for each color mix, but really you don't even need that much. I just went ahead and divided that in half so that it won't take me near as long to mix this. So what I'm going to make is a light Spanish olive. And you can just condition that with your hands. And I can condition with both hands. Now you can mix them completely or you can mix them partially, just really depends on what kind of a look that you're going for. And you can see there that my light Spanish olive is just almost complete. And now I just need to get my light alizarin crimson going just as quickly. Now, this terrazzo technique can be done a lot of different ways. And sometimes I base the way I do it on the size of the project. This is a teeny tiny project, and we don't need a whole lot of surface area to work with. So I'm just going to do a little pinching method where I'm pinching off colors and adding them to the white sheet. But true terrazzo, like you see in a terrazzo floor in like a large commercial setting, it's probably got lots of chopped bits in it and then poured in an epoxy liquid. Sometimes I do my terrazzo like that, where I'm actually chopping all the clays up and then putting them into a patty. And there's lots of projects like that online that I've done. So for this smaller piece, I think this is really the way to go. Now your white sheet needs to be big enough to accommodate all three of these little cutters. And these are from Michaels. It's a half, I think it's about an inch, and then a 1.5 inch set. So that's what we need to generate all these little pieces. So I'm starting with my darkest color first, and I'm really just pinching pieces from the edge and from the corner and dabbing those all over my sheet. And you want these to be super random. So sometimes you're going to get bigger ones and sometimes you're going to get smaller ones. And that's perfectly fine because that's the way terrazzo looks. It has a really random mosaic look to it, and that's what we're trying to mimic. The Alizarin Crimson has tons of pigment in it. And you can see, I don't know if maybe you can see, I can see it really well, that I'm actually getting some little bits of kind of a stain from my fingertips on the white, but I think that's perfectly fine because it just kind of lends to, you know, that whole random terrazzo look. So next I'm going to go with the Spanish olive, and I'm going to just pinch off little bits and put them in place, and trying to kind of not overlap too much, but overlapping is perfectly fine. Okay, next I'll do the beige, and this is Beige Primo, and Beige Primo is a beautiful and very versatile color. It's kind of translucent in and of itself, and you can see in my finished sample, it actually makes sort of a goldish tan look when it's used straight out of the package. But you can really take advantage of the translucence of that color, and then when you add other colors to it, which we're going to do in some of the other projects, you'll see how it changes quite a bit. So there's some translucent, and then I'll just add some, I mean, that's beige, which is a translucent color. And now I'm just going to add some of the light Spanish olive that we mixed. Get both hands going here so it goes a little quicker. If you have any questions, be sure and put them in the chat. I can hear Jen typing away over there answering your questions. And I would love to hear from you too. So it is a little bit challenging to teach these classes on Zoom because you don't get much response back. There's no giggling or murmuring or any of that good stuff that you get in person. So it's a real learning curve to learn how to do this kind of before, you know, where you can't hear anyone talking or breathing. All right, now roll over that with whatever kind of roller that you have, and what your goal is to make all those little chips of terrazzo smooth with your background. I'll just pick this up so that you can see it's perfectly smooth. There's no bumps, and you can make your own style of this however you want. You could make all the little bits teeny weeny tiny, or you could make some bigger ones like that. You really have a lot of control over the way you want this to look. So now I just need to cut 3 circles out like so, and you can take your time and really focus in on an area so that you get the pattern that you want, or you could just go at it totally random. So just push down and get those little pieces out like so. 1, 2, 3. Give that one a one. Now this can be set aside. You can use it for other projects, whatever you want. And now to make earrings, we need more pieces because this is only 3. So we're going to get our second little round bit that's up here. We're going to get that from the middle of the big circle. And if it gets stuck in there, just find a nice tool that's not going to make a lot of a mark and take it back out. Now I'll just take my slicing tool and cut these in half.
Hey, Amy, do you have any tips for getting the clay out of the cutters without having fingerprints or indents in it?
Yes. So one tip that you can use to get pieces out of cutters is, like, when you have your sheet ready to cut, you could put a piece of kitchen cellophane or saran wrap, whatever you want to call it, cling wrap, you could burnish that down over the top and then cut right through it with your cutter. And then that will give you a really nice beveled edge. Then all you have to do is peel that little bit of kitchen wrap away. Other than that, you just have to be careful about what kind of tools you're using so that you don't make marks. Next, I'm going to lay out my earrings, and I'll get this in a little bit better view. I'm laying these out on sort of a baking tile here. And what I want to do is position them exactly how I want them to be. Because we have to poke holes in these pieces so that we can connect them later. And so I want them as lined up as possible. And that looks pretty good. Now to poke the holes, I'm going to use this blunt point tool that comes in the clay tool starter set. And as you can see from the finished piece, I need a hole right here. And I need a hole right below it in this half round. And then I need holes here directly opposite each other so that after they're baked, I can connect them. So it's really important to line these all up. And I'm just pushing in with this blunt point tool. It has this neat little, probably about a 2 millimeter hole it makes. I'm just pushing all the way in and twisting it just to get a neat hole. This is kind of the most important part right here, is making sure these little holes line up with the piece directly under them. You also want to make sure that you get your holes far enough away from the edge that after it's baked, that hole will be nice and sturdy. Now, Primo Sculpey is super strong and it's slightly flexible after it's baked. So this is not as much of an issue as it might be with some other clays, but you still want to make sure that the space between the hole and the edge of the clay isn't just it's not just a thread. It needs to have a little substance to it, like probably at least a 1/16 of an inch. Now what I like to do is flip my pieces over and go back through the back. And anytime you poke a hole in the clay, it makes sort of a little ridge on the back. It's kind of like a little belly button, and you just need to push that back through the other way. And that makes your holes really, really neat. I think you can even see how neat they get. Now here I've got a couple bulges where I poked the hole through, and I just want to touch those up with my fingers and make sure, they look really good. So I would do that with all of the pieces. Now for assembly, well, first these need to be baked, and you need to follow the baking instructions for Primo Sculpey, which we recommend is 30 minutes at 275. You can bake on a tile or you can bake on a baking tray, however whatever your method of preference is. And when they're baked and completely cooled, then they're ready to assemble. So let's go ahead and take a look at how they assemble. And I magically have some pieces here that this one's already done, that are ready to go. You can also control how big the earrings are by what size jump rings you use, how you can use any color of jump rings that you want. You can pick your own metal. It's all good. It's just up to you to design it however you want. So this one has a little bit bigger jump rings than that one, so I'll finish this one the same way. All right, let me make sure I'm right in the middle of the camera so that you can see this. This is pretty important. Jump rings are most easily opened with 2 pairs of pliers, and these are both flat nose pliers. And what you do is grab the jump ring on either side of the little seam, and then you twist one forward and one back like that. You don't ever want to spread a jump ring open, you want to twist them open. And then you'll want to connect this through one of the holes, and then the opposite piece through one of the holes directly below. Then grab that again with your 2 sets of pliers and twist them back closed. Now, as I'm twisting closed, I'm actually putting pressure on those 2 little ends to really meet each other tightly. I don't want there to be a little gap there. I want these to be as strong as I can possibly make them. So I'm trying to make sure that little gap in the jump ring closes up really well. Let's do one more. Now, if you wanted to, these could have been dangle earrings with ear wires by putting another hole at the top. but the way we have them finishing is with a post on the back of that top little circle, and I'll show you that in a second. Let me just close one more jump ring. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of earring construction or jewelry construction, but that's how those work. Then I would just need another jump ring right here. So this piece then would just get glued on the back, and I have an ear post and an ear nut. And you want to make sure your ear post is going to fit and not show out the front like so. And then I like to use a silicone glue for polymer clay or oven baked clay. It works really well. Silicone glues work super well on surfaces that are non-porous. And that's definitely what we have with oven baked clays, is a very non-porous surface. It dries fairly quickly and it gives a really strong bond. So that is the terrazzo piece. Once that's completely dry, I'd be able to add my ear nut and that would be all done. All right, so I'm going to clean this up and go on to the next set. If anyone has any questions, please add those to the chat and we'll keep answering your questions as we go. Okay, this is the Mokume Gane set. And in this set, we're going to use a little bit the same colors that we used before, but in a little bit different combination. And here they are. Say, where are my colors? Here they are. Okay, starting out with a white sheet again.
Hey, Amy,
Yes.
really quick, people keep asking the same questions.
Okay.
Please talk about baking in your home oven, toaster oven. The ceramic tile can go directly in the oven. If you can give maybe some baking tips real quick.
Okay, I can do that while I'm mixing a color. Yeah, so baking 101. Okay, first I want you to know that what I have here is Primo Beige and Primo White. I've got 2 parts beige and 1 part white, so double the amount of beige as white. And this is what's going to turn this beige color away from a translucent, because I'm adding the white to it. So I'm just going to condition this with my hands and mix this color together while we talk about baking 101. Okay, so baking, here's what I do, and I've been at this for 30 years. I've been baking polymer clay and oven baked clay longer than I've had kids. So this is what I do. Because I bake oven baked clay almost every day, I have a committed oven in my studio, and it's a cute little convection, Hamilton Beach convection oven. It has a convection, it has a bake, it has a toast setting. And I generally just put it on the bake, and I have it, generally I have the dial just stuck at 275. I have an oven thermometer in there too, just to make sure that I'm always baking at the temperature that I think I'm baking at. And my studio is well ventilated. I have a fan in there. I also have my oven really near to a window, and I can open the window if I want to. Oven baked clays like Primo and Sculpey are completely non-toxic, but if you burn them, they will give off a slight odor and a fume, and so you want to avoid that. On top of the odor and the fume, you're going to probably ruin your piece because it will turn darker. So you want to be right on top of your time and temperature. The time and temperature stipulated for each of the oven baked clays is the best for the strength that you want to achieve when the piece is baked. So that is baking basics. Now, if I have a really big project, I'm trying to keep my hand right under the camera, but everything about this seems backwards to me when I look up there. So I do bake really big. If I'm doing a big project, I bake it in my home oven. And I'm not afraid to do that because I have a well ventilated home oven. If you want to, you can put like a tent over your projects. And what I mean by that is just like you could tent it with foil or with an aluminum, like a disposable baking pan, something like that. And that will help you like catch some of the a little bit of off-gassing that might come out of your project. But I do bake in my home oven if I have really big projects. I turn my my oven fan on and I vent that way. I've never had any problems with it in all of my 30 years. So that is what I've got in a nutshell about baking. Now, if there's more baking questions, I will take those, but I want to catch you up to what I've got here. So for the Mokume Gane set, we're going to use white and this light beige color that I made. We're going to use yellow gold glitter, Spanish olive, and gray granite. And what I want to do is produce a little sheet of each color. So I'm going to do that with my acrylic roller. And each time, I'm just conditioning right now with my roller, and each time I start again, then I fold it, and I always push air out away from the fold. Now you can do this with your pasta machine if you have one, if you've been doing clay long enough that you've invested in a pasta machine. And if you're going to use a pasta machine, I would roll these out on about a number 1 setting. But you just want to make them equal. So there's my yellow gold glitter. And I love that yellow gold glitter color because it's another translucent color. And when you mix it with other things, it just adds a lot of bling and a lot of excitement to the other colors without actually changing them very much.
Hey, Amy, how thick are these earrings, do you think?
So these, I didn't bring the ruler in here, Jen, but these are about and they're not quite an 1/8 of an inch.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say these are a little bit thinner than the thickest setting on a pasta machine, which is about an 1/8 of an inch. So I think they're a little thinner than that. So I just want to make a sheet of each color. And I'm not going to bore you with complete and total conditioning here. Just going to get these into sheets and then show you what to do next. Okay, now a tip that I've come up with for doing Mokume Gane processes is to use a little cutter so that I get the same volume of clay for each color. Now, this is a little set that I picked up at Michael's. And since we're teaming up with Michael's, we're using their cutters today. And this is a great little set. You get the circles and the squares all in one kit. And I'm just going to use this biggest square to cut each color. And the reason I'm doing that is so that I know I have the same volume of each color. They're all about the same thickness, and now they're all the same shape. So that means they're the same volume. This is also a great tip for making beads and making them all the same size. If you make all your sheets the same thickness and then you use a cutter to cut them out and then you roll that into a bead shape, you will have all the same thickness or the same size beads. Okay, those are my colors that I want to use. Now, when I'm doing Mokume Gane, which is what this technique is called, I really love to mix some flat colors, and here I have 3 flat colors with some what we call accent colors. This color has a lot of glitter in it, and this color has like flecks that almost looks like stone. And I think that in Mokume Gane, that really shows up really well when you have that added interest of the glitter and the stone. So what I want to do is sandwich the colors, the accent colors between the flat colors. In Mokume Gane, each color is going to kind of affect the one next to it. They're going to partially blend. Oh, and let me do something a little different here. I wanted my my Spanish olive on the top. And I generally put my darkest color on the top because in the Mokume Gane process, that is going to be the color that really carries your design. So when you look at this piece, you can see that Spanish olive really sticking out. And so that's because it started on top. So now I've made a little sandwich of all my colors, and I just want to start thinning that with my fingers. And then once I feel like it's moving really well, if I had a pasta machine here, I could press this through the pasta machine on the thickest setting, or I can hand roll it. And as I'm hand rolling it, I'm trying deliberately to keep it in sort of a square shape. So if it starts going too rectangular, I might turn it and go the other way, like so.
Amy, do you have any tips for preventing color bleed on your fingers from the clay?
No, I don't. My tip for that is keep paper towels and baby wipes handy all the time and wipe that color bleed away as often as you need to. I don't have any tips for keeping it from happening because just some of the colors have more pigment than others. You can even see right now I'm wearing Alizarin Crimson under this nail and probably will be until after the video. Okay, so I've thinned that quite a bit. I've thinned this almost as much. This is almost the same thickness as only one sheet of the color was, but now it's 5. And if you compare it to this, you can see it's way thinner because each color started out this dimension and now it's like 4 times that big. So setting that aside, next I want to section this into 4 pieces, and I'm just going to use my super slicer to do that, and then I'm going to restack it. So in Mokume Gane, it's really important that you generate some very thin layers. So I've got like 5 layers per 1/8 inch. See how thin those are? Thin enough that some of the colors are almost hard to see. And we're going to do this one more time where we're going to thin this back down with the roller. So first, I'm smushing it with my fingers to get it moving really well. And if you're going to put this through your pasta machine, it's good to smush it out with your fingers first so that you're not, putting undue pressure on those rollers and treating your pasta machine any harder than it needs to be. So this time I'm going to re-roll it until I want it to be a little thicker than 1/8 of an inch this time, which would be thicker than the thickest setting on a pasta machine. And next we're going to impress a design. Okay, I've got that about ready to go. So in Mokume Gane, what you do is you press in designs and then shave away the top. And Mokume Gane comes from a Japanese art. It means wood grain metal because they would take pieces of different types of metal and they would heat them and bend them and layer them until it created this beautiful pattern in the metal. And so we are mimicking that by impressing patterns in our clay. Now, in a perfect world, these would stay right in there as I cut them, but they're not. So I'm just going to cut it all the way down to the bottom and then use my finger to hold it in place. If the pieces come out, you want to just put them back in like a puzzle piece. So I love to find more than one use for all my tools. So not only can you use this to cut shapes, but we're actually using it to impress a design in the clay. And since these are crescent-shaped earrings and they're based on a circle, I thought it would be nice to repeat the circle in our Mokume pattern.
Can you talk a little bit about what other kind of things you can use?
Oh, yes. So you can use anything that will put a dent in polymer clay. So I've done Mokume with Phillips screwdrivers and with Allen wrenches, with the edges of scissors, with all kinds of things. We even remember that video we did, Jen, junk drawer Mokume, where we just used all kinds of junk keys. Yes, yeah, well, anything we could get our hands on. I have begged, borrowed, and stolen things from my husband's woodworking shop and from all different rooms in my house thinking, oh, that would look so cool pressed into clay. So that's what you want to do is just create, you can create as random a pattern as you want, or you can create as organized a pattern as you want. Now, just to give it a little more life and liveliness, I'm going to impress some of these dots, and these are going all the way through to the bottom. Now, in Mokume, you don't always have to go all the way through to the bottom, but I'm going to show you why we're doing this for our earring set in just a moment. Okay, so now I have really scarred this thing up. And what I want to do next is heal up the scars. And I do that with my roller. And I'm just rolling over this until you start to see the lines fade away. The holes aren't going to heal up completely, but those lines are going to get pretty lost. Now, if you'll notice, as I was doing that, I was enjoying the fact that it's sticking to my work surface, because the next part of the project is to shave this away. And if it's really stuck down to your work surface, this happens to be our silicone work and bake clay mat. The clay sticks to it really well. And so if you can get it to stick down, then you'll have more control over the slicing that comes next. So now what I want to do is shave off the top layer of this clay, and that's going to reveal the cool pattern inside. So I like to go at it with a more flexible blade. And that's what I have here, is a more flexible blade. And I'm bending the blade slightly by lifting up on each end. And that just gives me a little more purchase point right there to dig into the clay. And I'm shaving the clay as thinly as I can. And voila, when I remove the pieces that I've shaved, then that beautiful pattern that we impressed with the cutters is revealed, but in a really unique way. Now these pieces right here, these are gold to me. I would save these because they're so beautiful. You could wrap those around the outside of a ball for a bead. You could apply those randomly to the surface of something else. So it might be nice to have just something that you can put that on, because that's just as pretty as this. Okay, so what I want to do is shave away this clay to reveal that super cool pattern that we made. And just keep shaving. And you can see as you maybe shave deeper, or the clay kind of laid in a different way, you're getting different colors are emerging. And I just think it's so beautiful. This is one of my favorite techniques. It's not real precise, it's kind of random, and it always comes out just so pretty. You do have to be careful about how many layers you stack up in there. You can do so many thin layers that your pattern will be jumbled and you won't be able to see the actual lines that we made. So that does take a little bit of practice, but if you just follow what I did, which was just 5 thin layers down to the 1/8 inch, cut in quarters, and then done again one more time, you're going to have a pretty good outcome. Now what we can do, because we pressed the pattern all the way through to the back, is we can shave the back as well. And for earrings, I think that's a nice look, because sometimes people are, when you're wearing this style earring, especially if you have short hair, people might see the back of it. And so if we shave the back, then we're going to have an earring that's really neatly two-sided. So you just do the exact same thing on this side. You just shave it, and then you're going to get the same pattern, but in a different colorway than we had on the other side. Okay, I think you get the idea. If we look at my shavings, you can see that this is from these two are from the back, and these are all from the front, and it's the exact same colors, but because they are revealed in a different order, that's where you get the different color variation. But it's a really great way to make mix and match items too. All right, I'm going to quit playing with that, but what I want to do now is just flip this over and show you how to cut out your earring shapes. A finishing touch for the mokume gane would be to roll over it so that your surface is completely flat again, and just really, really nice. You don't want it to end up with like a lot of waves. So for these earrings, I used this largest cutter. It's about 1.5 inches, and just line it up on here and decide where you really like the pattern, and just go ahead and cut through. And we'll need 2 of these for earrings. But you can see we've got enough clay left over for more earrings if we want. So there's our basic shapes. And then all I have to do is decide, because this is a crescent shape, I just have to decide like what part I'm going to remove. And then I just use this same cutter and just take like a football shape out. Okay, so I cut that one out. Now I want this crescent to match this one exactly. So what I do is I leave that little football shape in there. See it stuck in the cutter? And I just line that up with the edge of the second piece and cut again. And that gives me the same size and same shape earring 2 times. Now these would also be really cute earrings right here, these little footballs. And you can see the backs are just as beautiful because we have that, you know, cool pattern on the back too. All right, to make them something that we can connect to earring findings, we'll just take our blunt point tool and make some neat little holes right up here in the edges. Again, make sure that you're leaving just a substantial border there that's going to hold a jump ring. And if I was grading you, I'd make you flip these over and go from the back again too to get that little belly button under control. Okay, and then those will be ready to bake. So let me just set these out of the way and I'll put those on the baking tray. And yes, I would fix that one from the back before I bake it. And let me show you how to assemble. This is a pretty simple assembly that we have going here. So what I have is just a couple jump rings, and I decided to go with gold jump rings again on this one because we have that yellow gold glitter color in there, and I think it goes really well with a gold finding. So open these up. These are smaller than the last ones I used.
Hey, Amy, can you talk about how durable polymer clay is?
I sure can. So then you just insert that like that and crank it shut. So oven baked polymer clay is, some brands are really quite durable, and they're made to be so. For example, Sculpey Primo and Sculpey Soufflé are both really strong clays. Sculpey Soufflé is so strong that in a very thin sheet, you'll have a hard time breaking it, even if you try to fold it in half. I've sheeted soufflés, Primo Soufflé through my pasta machine on the thinnest setting and then bent it in half and tried to crease it, and it wouldn't break. So as long as the clay is conditioned well and baked at the right time and the right temperature, which are always listed on the package, you're going to get a really strong product if you're using Sculpey Primo or Sculpey Soufflé. And what I always tell people is this really is art. This is your art. This is art that you have designed and developed. So while it is as strong as you make it with your good attention to detail, your good design, your good baking and temperature control, all that plays into it, but it is still art. And so you want to treat it as such. And I think that people that you make it for, you would want them to treat it that way too. Now, there are other brands that are intentionally not as strong because they might be a children's product. And for children's just getting started or beginners, you might not want to pay the price for a stronger clay. You just want to get started, or you want to help someone else get started that's got little hands and they need a soft clay that's soft and squishy. Maybe those clays, well, those clays definitely are not as strong. And yeah, so there is a difference in the brands of clay, even in the Sculpey brands of clay, there's a difference. But that's because there's a reason. There's an audience that those have been developed for, and people who make jewelry for a livelihood or to sell, for a business, they need really strong clay, and that's what they're going for. So did I answer that question?
Yes, I think you did.
Okay, so there at the end, these little ear wires are super popular right now, and you can use them and just hook them in like that. They also make great wires for like wine glass charms or on the stem of wine, but I always bend the end up so that it can actually hook into that little loop at the back. Now, believe it or not, I have no trouble getting that little bent hook through my pierced ears, and I don't think that's a problem. And I just enjoy that it hooks securely at the back. Now look how great this is, because you have a beautiful pattern on the back and on the front. And the other precaution that I would take is to maybe make a left and a right, so that you've got the eye coming from one direction and the hook going the other, and then you mirror that with the second earring. All right, so now I think we can move on to our third style, which is marbling. So I just want to clean up. Another thing I have to say about breakage is the clay is formulated to be as strong as it can be, but if you try, you can break it. So while it will withstand being dropped on the floor and kicked around, I wouldn't drop it on the floor and then step on it, because then that's more intentional and that's trying to break things. I would just treat my artistic creations like they are artistic creations. So, okay, next up is the set of marbled earrings. And for that, I used some Alizarin Crimson. I used some of the gray granite and some of the white. So I'm just going to grab some of these scraps over here, because what I want to do is I want to, again, measure out how much gray granite and how much white I'm using, so that I have a proportionate blend that I know is reliable. So I'm just reconditioning these little sheets we made earlier, and I'm sheeting them to about 1/8 of an inch thick. And I'm going to use my little cutter again to cut out a square so that each of them are the same volume. This comes in really handy if you're doing production work, you know, and you want to repeat the same process over and over, knowing, you know, what volume of clay you need to make a certain blend of color. Now I'm just folding and pressing to blend these, but I really want to only blend them very partially. I don't want to go for a complete and total new color. So I really like the fact that I've got some solid white here. I have some darker gray granite over here, and right in this area I've got this beautiful salt and pepper look. And I really love that, because it just gives you a big range of detail. Now I'm forming it back into kind of a little fat log, and I'll just roll it a bit even to make it log shaped. Now marbling can be done as many different ways as there are people who are working with oven baked clays. So this is just one technique. All right, next I'm going to section off just a little tiny bit of this Alizarin Crimson, and a little bit of this color goes a long way. And I did this project several times, and each time I did it, I toned the Alizarin Crimson down, because I just really wanted to focus on that beautiful gray granite and white combo in the background, and just have this as a hint. So now I'm just smushing down little tiny ropes of the alizarin to the sides of the little fat log, and I'm going to roll this a bit and roll it a bit and twist it a bit. Just a bit. I don't want it to look like stripey, like a candy cane. I'm just really trying to come up with kind of a really random marbling. Now I'm rolling it up Nautilus fashion into a coil, because again, I don't want to end up with candy striped earrings. I just want to end up with like a sophisticated marble. Now I'm working it into a ball and rolling it into a ball with my palms. Okay. Next, I'm going to roll it back into a little log. Okay, now that it's, and I'll just twist it a little bit just for good luck. Okay, next I'm going to cut these little ends off. because they don't help me think about dividing this into 6 equal pieces. So now that I have it into a little log with flat ends, I'm going to cut this in half. And then I'm going to cut these into thirds. This rolling technique I'm doing while I'm cutting, it's kind of a good way to cut things without smushing them. It's really warm in here, and I'm really warm, and the clay's really warm. And if you just go at it with a real pushing motion, you're going to compress your colors and your stripes that you've, you know, so delicately made. And that's especially kind of a tip for cane making slices too, that you can use that rolling technique. Better yet is to let your little log rest and come back to a manageable temperature. But since I needed to just go ahead and slice it, I used that little rolling technique there. So I'm just looking up to see some faces. Hello, people. Hello. So, okay, so these are coming out really about all the same size. And that's another tip that you can do to make things the same size, is if you've got a little rope of clay and it's consistently the same thickness, and then you section it into little pieces that are consistently the same length, then when you roll those up into balls, they'll all be the same size. And you can use a ruler or whatever you need to make that happen. I just so happen to err on the side of evenness, and when you tell me to make something uneven, I'm an absolute failure. So, okay, at this point, what you could do is poke a hole with a needle tool. But what I like to do is just go ahead, and my ultimate end is going to be that there's a head pin through each one. So I'm just going to use the head pin as my poking tool and bake it right on those head pins. So. And there it comes through, and pull it all the way down to the head. Then you might just want to do a little finessing to make sure, if you get a little bulge of clay coming out that way, you can always turn it around and poke it back through, and it'll take that little bulge to the inside. Similar to that little belly button that we had going earlier with the flat pieces. Let me show you this again. So what you can do is poke through, and if you want to use a little drilling motion, you can. And then if you put your finger on the other side, you'll feel it come through. And if you position this finger right across from your eye pin, you will somehow naturally hit your finger. It's like one of those natural weird things that happens. I can't really explain it. It's some sort of physical property, but anyway. All right, so what we want to do is add eye pins to all 6 of those and then bake them. Here's a little baking tip for you. If you don't have a bead baking rack, you can bake on a soft cloth. This is a piece of fabric batting. You can bake on all kinds of different things to avoid getting a shiny spot on your beads. So for example, if I bake on a ceramic tile, which is super shiny and smooth, then my beads are going to have a super and shiny and smooth shiny spot on them too. The clay will want to mimic whatever it's touching during the heating process. So I like to avoid the shiny spots by baking on a piece of batting or soft cloth. Whatever you want to do, or bead baking rack is handy where the beads are completely suspended. And then that way you don't have a weird shiny spot on your round beads when you're done. Okay, those would go in the oven, and then let me show you how to assemble. Because polymer clay or oven baked clay bakes at such a low oven temperature, only 275, there's so many things that can actually, go in the oven right with the clay, and you don't have to worry about them burning, just like that batting or cloth or paper. Okay, so these little designs that I made up, these are on the head pins like I showed you. The middle one has 10 little seed beads strung onto the head pin, and the outside 2 have 6 little seed beads. And these are just clear beads. This is what they look like, before they're assembled in their sets. Here's one that I've baked on the head pin. So let me show you. To make this earring, I need another one with 6 little seed beads, and I just got to grab those here. And if I have like a clear lid I can spill them into, that's always handy. How are we doing on time, Jen?
9 minutes.
Ooh, okay. We are gonna do it. All right, so I'm just spilling some of those out. And then what I do is I use the tip of the head pin to just pick them up. And then I try to hold them on there with this finger so that each time I dip down for another one, they stay on.
Amy, can you
Yes.
get the specific batting you were using? Like, was it cotton, polymer?
No, this is a polyester batting, and it actually is the little piece of batting that comes in the Sculpey jewelry making kit, or
Okay.
is it jewelry making or bead making?
Bead making.
Okay, it's a bead making kit that Sculpey puts out, and it's actually a polyester batting. And what's really weird about it is, like when it comes out of the oven, can you see the little dents? Can you see the little dents?
Yep.
Okay, those are from the last time I baked. It made little dents right where those were. But then what I do is I just turn it over. This side's still a lot flatter. I use it, and then the dents will come out of this side. So every time you bake it, it gets new dents and loses the old dents. It's kind of funky. Okay, so anyway, that is how you string up your seed beads onto the head pin, and I'm just going to go ahead and show you what I do next. So I want to take just a pair of wire cutters and trim this. So I want to hold those little beads on with my finger. So the beads go up to about there, and I'm going to position my wire cutters a good half, maybe a little bit more than a ½ inch away from that top bead, and I'm going to remove that much of the tail because I don't need all that for bending my loop. Next, I'll take some round nose pliers, and I want to just grab the very end, the very, very, very end of that head pin, and just pull it down. I'm coiling a loop with round nose pliers. And I like my loop to go around all the way one time and then a little bit more, just to make a lot of security. I'm bending the loop all the way down to those seed beads, and then I'm grabbing the loop and pulling it back so that the loop is in line. The loop is centered on the head pin now. Okay, and then all I have to do is take another jump ring and string up all 3 of these pieces. I've got a short one and the longer one and the short one again, and then just add the ear wire at the same time. And there's no front or back to these earrings, which makes it beautifully easy to assemble. And there you go, cute little pair of dangly marbled earrings. So hey, I'm so glad that you could join me on this Primo Sculpey. Can you go to my face? Thanks. Thanks for joining me so much. I appreciate it. It was fun to show you some Primo Sculpey techniques. Now, if you want to join me next week, we're going to look at making this picture frame. It's made with Sculpey 3 and gold liquid Sculpey. We're also featuring our mandala mold, liquid Sculpey in the mandala mold, and this is the hexagon mosaic cutter, and this is all mounted on a wooden frame that goes right in the oven. So that's next week, July 28th at 5 o'clock Central Standard Time. On August 4th, we're going to make these Primo Sculpey Coasters. They're mostly gray granite and white, and then we've added some gold foil to give them a really contemporary look, and those are going to be fun to make. I also would love to see what you guys are making with Sculpey. Maybe you're making things from this class, or when you rewatch the video, which you can do, it'll be up ready to watch on Thursday. And if you want to post to social media the things that you're making, please use the hashtag Sculpey, and hashtag Make It With Michaels, because we'd love to see what's inspiring you and what you're creating. So Jen, do we have any time for any more questions?
5 more minutes.
We got 5 minutes if anyone's got a burning question. So love to hear from you.
Oh, what about your necklace? Talk about your necklace.
Oh, my necklace. My friend Star, she lives in Florida, and I see her at the Orlando retreat. And her name is Star, and she made these into poker chips, and they're made out of Primo Sculpey. Aren't they beautiful? And so I won one in one of our games that we played. She's got this beautiful crystal set in there. And then I just used my drill and turned it into a pendant piece because it was really just too pretty to sit in a jar, and I knew it needed to be worn. So thank you, Star.
And can you also just remind everyone for the last pair of earrings what the baking time was?
Yes, the baking time is 30 minutes. I always bake Primo for 30 minutes at 275, and that is actually the baking time for all three of these projects.
And then what about adding crystals?
Ooh, crystals are easy to add and beautiful to add, but do make sure they're actually crystal and that they're actually glass, not acrylic, because they have to be able to withstand the temperature of 275. So if you're not sure, you might just want to bake one of your crystals and make sure it's going to survive the oven temperature. Otherwise, you can set those down in the clay and kind of make a little mound of clay around the edge, which I'm not sure if that's what Star did or if she maybe glued them on later. There's also heat set crystals that have a heat activated glue on the back. You can always use those with oven baked clays, and those are really beautiful too, but do heat test them first.
Katie B wants to know, how do I keep clay from sticking to me?
Whoa, like sticking to hands?
I think so.
Okay, well, my theory is that 2 out of 50 people have such hot hands that the clay will stick to them. And I do have a lot of friends that use those very thin nitrile, am I saying the word right? Nitrile gloves. They're like super thin purple gloves. You can also use a little bit of cornstarch as a release, but you do want to be careful with that because you don't want to change the composition of the clay. But a dusting of cornstarch will make it a lot less sticky, and probably try the gloves, yeah. But don't give up.
And they want to see, someone wants to see what you made today. If you could show all three.
Oh, sure.
Papers,
Yes, that would be great.
time.
Okay, so here are the, that one's not done. Let me just quickly make you a little, these are the Terrazzo earrings that we made. And these are the Mokume Gane earrings. And remember, we used a lot of the same colors, but we used them in different ways and in different combinations. And then this is the marbled set of earrings. And you can play this video back anytime after Thursday. It'll be on the Michaels website in the community classroom for you to be able to rewatch after Thursday. So I hope that you guys are inspired to make some stuff. Oh, my glasses are so glary. Sorry about that.
Okay, I think we're done.
All right. Love you guys. Love Sculpey. Love all the oven bake things you can do with oven baked clays. And I hope to see you next week for the picture frame project. Thanks for joining. Someone's waving. I love it.